Hi guys, today I'm here to talk to you about the Succession movie. I know the clickbait was a little clickbaity, but I needed people to click on the video. But today we're talking about HBO Max's new release, or Max's new release. I know they're going through a rebrand, Mountainhead. This is from the creator, the writer, the director of Succession, Jesse Armstrong. And it's not exactly more of the same. I have been a bit misleading. If you go in expecting Succession, you can see the DNA here, but it's its own thing. And I love this movie, guys. For a movie you can just put on Max, it looks stunning, visually stunning. The performances here are all great. This is essentially a bottle movie, by the way. It's four characters, four tech billionaires essentially, or four billionaires meeting up at a Mountainhead. One of them has bought this house called the Mountainhead. They're all hanging out there while the world is essentially having an international crisis. And it's just following these four billionaires kind of being snarky and managing it and figuring out their PR.
Violence, chaos, and people are dying.
You're not real. Heads don't explode like that.
Heads don't explode like that?
No.
How do heads explode?
I don't want to give too much more away than that, but if you like Succession, the writing here is fantastic. The acting here is great. This is a spoiler-free section, so I can't get into it too much, but this film visually looks gorgeous. The music is fantastic. I can't wait for the soundtrack to release, but I love the way this movie looks. But the big thing here is the dialogue. Initially, this movie may feel to you maybe a bit surface level in its satire. It's more eat the rich. It's more how awful and crazy billionaires are. And for a while, I was seeing there like, oh, the thing I loved about Succession is, yes, it took these billionaire archetypes, but it did a really good job of getting blood from the stone and still getting us to really empathize with these billionaires and feel really bad for them. There was this Shakespearean sense of tragedy in Succession that I absolutely adored. And for a while in Mountainhead, I was like, this feels like Succession light. These characters are a bit more on the nose, a bit more obnoxious. It's very clear what we're going for here. And then the film turns into something else completely. Now, if you've seen it, you absolutely know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't seen it and this sounds interesting to you, go watch the movie. But when it shifts, it's so interesting and it takes all the characters in a completely different direction. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about these characters. This is a movie where you simultaneously want more time with these characters and are also glad it was a movie instead of a miniseries. Like, I love the efficiency here. I love how well I know these characters by the end of the movie, having only spent less than 2 hours with them. But at the same time, it ends in such a way where I'm like, I would love more time with these characters. So if you're not completely sold, I'll give you a bit more context for what the plot is, and then I'm going to get in a spoiler-filled discussion for those of you who have seen the movie. So if you're interested at this point, you don't need to know anything more. Go watch the movie, come back to this video. If you're still not sold, I'll give you a little extra and then cut off, and then we'll go into a full spoiler discussion. So the international crisis is revealed in the first 20 seconds. One guy named Venice has essentially invented the AI software that Google just announced. It's this AI software that can generate incredibly realistic looking videos at the touch of a finger. So it's like ChatGPT, but you can make insane AI generated videos. And instantly, the moment they drop these new features, the world's gone into disarray because people have been making fake and getting it confused with real videos, but people have been making fake videos of political violence, terrorist attacks, and as a result, this has sparked real-world violence where presidents or mayors are getting assassinated, political figures are getting hurt, and people can't tell the difference between fake and real content, and the world's just in complete disarray. And these billionaires are meeting up to essentially discuss seemingly a new world order in the face of this, but a core conflict here is that another billionaire that's there, at the start of the movie, he's the third richest and slowly gets more wealth because of the software potential. But he's made a software that can help people figure out the difference between fake and real footage, right? Essentially, demystifying the AI that Venice has created. So this is the character of Jeffrey, played by Rami Youssef. So essentially, they have competing AI forces. And you'd think a good person would go, oh, that's great. We'll team up and work together. You'd think Venice would go, oh, well, that's a great companion piece to my software. But he doesn't really want that because he thinks the core marketplace wants to be able to make real life looking video and not be able to tell the difference between whether it's fake or real. He thinks that's an advantage to his software. So they're kind of in a core tension because obviously the right thing to do would be release software that allows you to figure out whether it's true or not. But he's like, nah, that makes my tech less exciting, even though it's literally causing global world international chaos. Now, I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. If that sounds interesting to you, the dialogue is snappy, it's hilarious, there's a lot more character depth as the movie goes on. But as it stands, it's no one does it like Jesse Armstrong. I think they absolutely nailed this movie. It's real, real good. Go check it out. Now we're going to do a spoiler discussion because I really need to get into this. I also haven't talked about two other characters because I really couldn't say anything about them without spoiling stuff that felt necessary, that wasn't part of the hook. Because in my opinion, you go into this movie blind. But Steve Carell as Randall, super interesting. He feels like the kind of Logan Roy figure because he's older, but also a lot more malicious. I think what I was really impressed with here is the big core conflict here, right, is that the world is essentially ending due to this AI video creation software that Venice has made. And all these people seem to care about is obviously their money going up, but also I found it really interesting and strange Steve Carell's kind of stake in this. What he wants is he essentially wants Venice to succeed and kind of almost like lead to world annihilation and like let the world burn, because he's really interested in uploading his consciousness because he is mortal. He has cancer. He doesn't have that long to live. His cancer will come back. He knows he's on borrowed time. So he doesn't care about what's happening to the world around him. And what he wants is Venice's like resources and kind of like ability to upload him to this cloud so then he can like fuck about in a digital kind of world. And I think it's really good parallel to like the way Elon Musk is kind of causing political disarray at the moment and seems more preoccupied with what we're going to do on Mars. I think it's really interesting. I think where this goes is really dark. They set this up as seemingly a bit of a punchline, just a little bit of a throwaway thing, and Succession used to be so good at this. Succession would set up things that happen in season 1, if you know, with Kendall, and then in the finale, it would come back in huge ways where you're like, I can't believe you, like, whoa, like I thought the show forgot about that. And in this movie, they set this up as what feels like a bit of a joke, but it leads to Steve Carell having this view on humanity and mortality and life that is really disturbing and essentially results in him going, hey, we're going to kill Jeffrey, Rami Youssef's character. That's where this movie goes. The last hour is 3 morons trying to kill this guy who, out of the 4 of them, is the most morally kind of upstanding, even though he's a bit questionable himself, and we'll get into that. But you know, they want to stop him because his technology will essentially, you know, kind of cap the potential that this AI generative video software has. They don't want it regulated. They don't want something getting in the way and stopping it. They don't want that because they want the world in chaos. They want to make more money and sit on their little high life and then go to the digital land. So like what you get here with Steve Carell's character is someone who's unhinged. He frequently has these outbursts that feel strange and very senile and very out of nowhere. There is a reaction Rami Youssef gives to one of them. Jeffrey is Rami Youssef's character, but there's a reaction Jeffrey has when Steve Carell yells where it seemingly throws him. He's like, where'd that come from? And this happens time and time again in the movie. And I found Steve Carell's character, I've been thinking about him because he's so multifaceted. There's this moment where Jeffrey is talking to Randall Garrett, Steve Carell's character, and says how he loves him and how he's like Papa Bear and all this stuff. And seemingly Randall appreciates this and really finds it humbling just to go back to the other billionaires and like, yeah, we're definitely going to kill him. He was giving me all this shit about like how I'm his Papa Bear. It was just so and it's like, I don't think that was manipulative, but he's almost like refusing to see it any other way because he wants to get on board with killing this guy. I think out of all of them, weirdly enough, like you think Venice is almost having fun with the idea and he's like a fucking delusional sociopath. But the other two are like half in, half out, and there's still a bit of humanity coming through of like, like a bit, all right? Like at the end, the dickhead billionaire who clearly just is totally out of touch does come up and apologize. And like, I'm not excusing the dickhead billionaire Venice. I'm not excusing him. But you can see some level of like humanity in his own twisted, demented way. And again, this is what Succession was always all about. But I think what I found particularly interesting was Steve Carell's character seems really angered by this. Just the fact that they didn't commit to actually killing him. They pussied out in his eyes. They didn't actually do it. It really rattles him. And I think he wanted to take out, in my opinion, he wanted to take out Jeffrey because there was some resentment there. There was some resentment about the fact that he became the second richest there in the room. when they met, Randall was. And I think to me, I love that this movie goes from what feels like a very broad, brash, you've seen it 10, 20 times before, satire on billionaires and how they're not really like people, only to strip them down to essentially what feels like the Mean Girls, like plastics. You know, the scene where Jeffrey comes out after being locked in the sauna all night and just kind of like rips them on a friendship level and talks about the effect that this is going to have on him. And also the reveal that he's like seemingly, at least my interpretation, is made a wine for this friend, like essentially start a wine company for him with his face on it. After that guy was wanting him to invest in his health app, only to then turn on him and try kill him, it's just a really interesting moment. And this guy gets his app too. He gets his app because he went through with the murder plot. And even though they weren't successful, Randall and Venice are like, okay, we'll give you $2 billion for your health app. And I thought all the endings for these characters were just so good, particularly the one for Jeffrey's character after this murder plot, after knowing what these friends would do to him. Oh, by the way, when the murder plot is initially presented and we have that moment where he's looking over the edge and he pushes him, that felt so true to life. Succession was always good at it, but the way the camera like moves around and just like going from it almost gets you in on the murder plot. You're almost sort of like, oh, I kind of want to see how this would play out in a really sick, twisted way. And then the way he pushes him and just this awkward interaction with, were you trying to push me over? No, I was just joking. And not many shows or movies could pull it off this well, but I thought that tension and that scene afterwards where it's really embarrassing and humiliating and strange and just really, really good writing. I thought all of that was excellent. And then the pillow sequence where they're trying to choke him out into the gasoline squeegee sequence, which was just hilarious. And I love the scene where all three of them were like standing ready to pounce. But yeah, I thought all the endings for these characters were excellent. So with Jeff, for example, he completely turns on this group. He's like, I'm getting out of here. It seemed like throughout the movie, at least to me, Jeffrey did actually seem concerned with what the world was turning into, like what these AI generated videos were doing. And yes, he does kind of enjoy the money side of it. He does enjoy riffing with these people. Like he wouldn't be there otherwise, but he did seem genuinely like morally angry at Venice. And I guess what I found interesting is after all of that, after what they put him through, after trying to kill him, he comes out and there is a bit of like billionaire ego. You know, he starts being like, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of those documents. You and I are gonna lock heads. Like this is not over. This is just the beginning, fucker. It's almost like this sense of depravity he had to witness has now sat in there, and now he's really preoccupied with like, you know, beating them at their own game. Again, I think the character depth here is a lot better than people are giving it credit for. I thought the scene with Venice and his child was, by the way, one of the funniest scenes of the movie when they're looking onwards as he's got this kid crawling on the floor, like he doesn't know how to play with a kid. And they're like, is this sweet or is this just fucking the saddest thing you've ever seen? Got a really good laugh out of me. But I thought his character ending was excellent. I thought Jeff, Rami Youssef's character's ending was fantastic as well. Just watching him dig his heels in a bit instead of leaving traumatized. He's like, no, fuck these guys. He's now part of them. But I also thought Randall's ending was what really got me thinking. Again, there's this sense of resentment. I'm not the richest anymore. I don't like the fact that you're going to get in the way of me potentially uploading my consciousness to the cloud. There's this disregard for human life, like genuinely, that I think they set up that I think a lot of people will miss because the dialogue is very fast. And I think also people are very bad nowadays at just second screen viewing. But like thinking about this movie over and over again, like, yeah, Steve Carell's character is hell-bent on being uploaded, you know, into AI software and seemingly doesn't seem to care about the real world anymore because he knows he won't be a part of it. And he sees Venice and Jeff kind of linking up at the end as this massive betrayal, like, oh, I'm old, I'm sick, these guys are leaving me behind. There's like a really good sense of seething resentment. And I love the way the camera holds on Steve Carell's character, Randall, for quite some time, and really makes us sit in the car with him. It's disturbing and interesting, and you can't tell if there's an empathetic lens here or it's just saying, look at this like guy. And it is interesting also that he was the one that came up with this plan despite being closest to Jeff. He was the one that really pushed it. There's this like almost this like old head, like, I want to get rid of you. Fuck you for beating me, like in terms of being rich. Fuck you for having youth and health. Like there's a bitter, awful, resentful nature there that I think they absolutely aced, and you see come out in these moments of anger. On top of that, we haven't talked about him much, but Hugo, he is the owner of Mountainhead. He's the one that initially asks Jeff for investment in his wellness health app. His ending is that after everything he's been through, he starts using his wellness and health app. And to me, it felt like the reason, if he's got any mental clarity or happiness, is because they've invested in his app. The app isn't doing shit, you know? Like, that's not the thing that's really got him buzzing. But I thought after watching, like, I thought it nailed it. I know it's not the easiest commentary. Like, I know it's very easy commentary to make. Like, the people that make wellness apps are kind of unwell themselves, or really rich people who could help the world don't. But I thought it nailed it in the sense of like he's seemingly pretending to like engage in his own wellness app, but really what's brought him peace is the fact that he's financially secure. He's now entered billionaire status. They set up very early on in the movie that he's cripplingly insecure because he's only got $555 million instead of the billionaire status. That's a running joke throughout the movie. I also love the running joke of them not like his house, describing the floors as slippery, even though, like, I don't know about you guys, I thought the house was a fucking sight to behold. But yeah, I thought this movie looked good. I thought it was excellent. I loved the pacing, and I was happy with it just being them navigating this crisis. So the turn it took into being like a murder plot, and how funny the murder plot was, but also the ending where Jeffrey is kind of confronting the group at the table and really making them feel bad. And they're sitting there being like, oh, he's guilt tripping us a bit. He's stringing this a lot. He's been a bit of a baby. It shows how juvenile and awful and petty they were, and seemingly how different he was to them, only to then lean in and want to be part of that like kind of chase and like that fuck you energy with the ending there. And Randall seemingly is the one leaving the saddest, and like rightfully so. He tried to fucking, encourage them to kill Jeff, but they also went through it, but they're also lacking humanity given their financial status. Like, it's clearly set up that they lack a lot of humanity. But I thought this movie was awesome. I think Jesse Armstrong has proved that not only is he a really good writer, he's also a good director. Thank God it wasn't directed by Mark Millard. I'm glad Jesse Armstrong actually went for it. I think he aced it. I think this is a real good notch on his belt. It's not as good as Succession, but not many things are. But this is a real good, solid movie that I gladly would have spent money on, probably multiple times, to see at the movies. Best looking movie of the year for me. I loved how this movie looked. Loved it. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hoped I gave some interesting insight into this movie. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Also, I offer memberships to this channel, both on Patreon and YouTube. Either one, pick your poison. But I just talk every 2 weeks about everything I've watched in a given... every 2 weeks I talk about every show or movie I've watched in the form of a podcast. So if that sounds interesting to you, please consider checking it out. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a lovely day.